The first pitch of the afternoon is up and away for ball one.
John Maine, we mentioned before, left his last start with cramping of that left forearm. He said it should not be a problem in today's game as he tries to keep that bus rolling for those pitchers against these giant hitters.
Here you see the numbers for John this year, going for his 9th win of the season. And Lewis takes a fastball for a strike, and it's 1-2. Lewis sitting at 279, but he's 0 for 10 over the last 3 days, and 0 for 8 in this series. There are a lot of 0-fers in this series in that Giants lineup. They've had just 6 hits combined in the first 2 games and only 1 extra base hit. Emmanuel Burris waiting on deck, hitting second in the order today.
This is Bruce Bochy, manager of the Giants, my former roommate and locker mate, and I know this is killing him. He's such a competitor.
He was a Sunday catcher.
Yes. We used to call him Sunday Bruce Bochy in AAA. He would only play on Sunday. We had Mike Fitzgerald in those days who played every day, and he would invariably hit, like Castro, a 2-run, 3-run, or grand slam home run every Sunday.
3-2 to Lewis. Popped it up, shallow left. Ball drifting on Nick Evans. And Evans making the start today in left, has it for the first out of the game. And if that's any indication, the ball's going to carry well here today.
A little gustier day today, isn't it, out here? The humidity has gone away, which is fantastic.
It's just a delightful day to be in the ballpark. No threat of rain anywhere. And that's been a rarity of late. Here's Emmanuel Burris. Only the 4th time he's hit second this year, and we have those beautiful shots from the blimp today. Just a crystal clear day. Ball 1 to Burris. Burris, a switch hitter, hitting at 299. This is the 28th start that he's made for the Giants, and little by little he's starting to take more and more playing time from Omar Vizquel. Vizquel, who has been a great player, borderline Hall of Famer, you'd have to say.
Agreed.
And still can pick it at shortstop, but he just has not hit at all this year. And Burris, the future for the Giants. And, you know, this is a San Francisco team, even though they're only 6 games out of first place and technically in the race in that equal opportunity National League West, they are very much playing for the future.
Yes. And they've got some good young pitching. They've got some good young talent like Burris, you mentioned, Freddie Lewis, who led off.
And Maine misses inside. It's 3-1.
Vizquel had a similar career to Ozzie Smith in the sense that when he first came up, he was a defensive wizard, pardon to Ozzie Smith, but couldn't hit and really worked on his hitting. He became a very accomplished offensive player.
Well, I think you can make the case as you look at that 3-1 changeup from Maine. You can make the case that if Ozzie's in the Hall of Fame, then Vizquel should be too.
Agreed.
3-2 in the air to left again, and in comes Evans on the run to make the grab. 2 hitters, 2 fly balls to left, 2 outs for John Maine.
Well, the Rico Mets defense, Beltran in center field, a Gold Glover flanked by Evans in his 7th start in left, Tatis his 8th start in right field. Congratulations to Argenis Reyes. This is his first start in the big leagues at second base. The rest of the infield you know, and Schneider catching day game after night game, lefty versus lefty, after Castro had those couple hits last night against Sanchez.
There's Omar Vizquel, 11-time Gold Glove winner. Randy Wynn up with 2 out and nobody on, and he takes ball 1 from Maine. Wynn's next home run will be the 100th of his major league career, and maybe that's what he was thinking when he swung at the first pitch in the top of the 5th yesterday with the rain pouring down, trying to bunt his way on with Wright playing back, and it's 1-1.
I went in their clubhouse. I was going to ask him about that just to see that, but on the day games after night games, players arrive very late to the game, so we missed him. But interesting to see what his answer was. Hear what his answer was.
Well, you know what makes it even more intriguing is that with the Mets very much in the market for a corner outfielder, with the latest setback to Moises Alou coming out of a rehab start yesterday with some cramping in his hamstring, and we hope to hear more about that later today. Brian Church on the disabled list. Wynn is one of those names that has been out there, mentioned as a veteran player the Mets might be interested in acquiring. 2-2 to Randy.
Oh, Randy can do a lot of things. He doesn't give you a lot of power. This whole Giant team doesn't have a lot of power. John Bowker, their first baseman today, leads their team with 9 home runs. But despite swinging at the first pitch last night with the downpour, he's a very well-schooled player, well-liked player, guy that's great in the clubhouse.
3-2 now to Wynn. Wynn's 34 years old. He's had a very nice career. One of the few players who's ever been traded for a manager.
That's right.
Traded for Lou Piniella. 3-2 from Maine, and he missed ball 4, and Wynn is on with a 2-out walk. So Maine goes 3-2 on each of the first 3 hitters, and walks his first. And now Aaron Rowan, who's hitting cleanup in the Giants batting order today. This is one of the things we talked about last night with the Giants. Aaron Rowan, a very good player, but not a cleanup hitter.
Yeah. They have a lineup of, second place hitters or 6th place hitters, it seems, so far this season. Well, they kind of lost a pretty good 4th place hitter this season with Barry Bonds, of course.
And what's interesting is that that's had a trickle-down effect, not only in terms of their power, but in terms of their team on base percentage. Because with Bonds around, the Giants always drew a lot of walks. This year, they're second to last in the National League in drawing walks.
And he always made every single person in that lineup better just by his presence.
Rowan hitting at .298 after a very fast start. Grounds one foul just outside the bag. 0-2. Now the Giants are dead last in the National League in home runs, 3rd from the bottom in runs, and everything else falls from there.
Now, something to note here, Jerry Davis, the home plate umpire, has a very, very small strike zone, which will affect Maine, but not as much as it'll affect Barry Zitto, who's he's going to be facing today. Maine, of course, gets a lot of swings, had his pitches. Barry Zitto, of course, the kind of pitcher who likes to throw to corners and really needs at this point in his career to get some of those calls. We'll watch that with Jerry behind the plate.
0-2 to Rowan with 2 out. And it's up and in with the fastball. 1-2. Well, Zitto had a 10 strikeout performance against the Dodgers in his last start. That kind of came out of nowhere. And he had 15 swings and misses in that game. Most he's had in a game in 3 years. So maybe it's a different Barry Zitto that we're going to see today. Gets behind Schneider, and that'll move Wynn down to second. Looked like a ball Schneider should have had. So now the Giants have a runner in scoring position.
Well, this is a ball that even if Brian was up here, he would say that's a play he's got to make.
They scored a wild pitch. So Wynn at second with 2 down. 8th wild pitch of the season for Maine. But you got to give half of that to the catcher. Barry Zitto getting ready for his start in the bottom of the first, hoping the Giants can get him a run. 2-2 to Rowan, and that just missed. So for the 4th straight batter, Maine goes to a 3-2 count. And if this is the way Jerry Davis is going to call the strike zone all day, this game's going to take a long time to play.
Getaway day. Usually how the umpire opens up that zone a little bit.
I guess Jerry has nowhere to go. 3-2 to Rowan with Wynn at second and 2 down. Wynn takes off. It's ball 4. No throw by Schneider because Wright didn't go to cover the bag. So Wynn steals 3rd. Back-to-back walks issued by Maine as Maine is forced to expend a lot of pitches here in the opening inning.
The first baseman, number 21, John Bowker.
Well, that's right for David to hold his ground because he wants to make that play first. If he's moving and Rowan puts that ball in play, and remember earlier in the at-bat, Rowan had hit a ball just fouled down the third base line.
17th stolen base for Wynn. That leads the Giants. Now John Bowker with a chance, 1st and 3rd and 2 down. Remember 2 nights ago, Mike Pelfrey ran into first inning trouble, bases loaded and 2 out, and he struck out Bowker to get through that jam. And essentially that's the only jam that the Mets have faced in this series. Now 2 days later, Maine faces similar trouble in the first inning, and again it's Bowker and that he needs to get through. Bowker is actually the Giants leader in home runs. Dan Warthen looks on, hoping Maine can negotiate this first inning. Bowker with 9 home runs. He pops it up. should be playable. Schneider drops the mask. Side retired. So Bowker again is the key out in the first inning as Maine works around a couple of walks, and the Mets come to bat against Zitto in the bottom of the first. It's a very different perspective of Shea Stadium as you look at the Mets Geico starting lineup. Jose Reyes riding a 5-game hitting streak. Argenis Reyes making his first big league start. It's a pair of kings at the top of the batting order. Nick Evans in the lineup for the 7th time, just back a couple of days ago from Double-A as they take on Barry Zitto.
Who is in his last start sharpened up his slider a little bit. Not as big as that big curve. Fastball was touching 89 miles an hour. He got his first home win of 2008. He had been 0-8 at AT&T Park.
Jose hitting a .301, and Zitto misses up and away with his first offering. Reyes with 9 homers, 39 driven in, 114 hits. And Zitto behind 2-0. Zitto walked only 1 in that start against the Dodgers, struck out 10. Only 1 shy of his career high. Argenis Reyes on deck, and Jose takes ball 3. And after Maine got squeezed in the top of the first, Zito's behind on Reyes 3-0 in the bottom of the first. There's a strike, and it's 3-1. Barry Zitto now 30 years old in the 2nd year of a 7-year contract. Ooh, that's a wide strike, and it's 3-2.
Well, after calling the 2-0 pitch a ball, same pitch, now it's a strike.
So it's 3-2 to Reyes. Every batter who's hit in this game other than Bowker has gotten to 3-2. And that's hit to left field. Over in the gap goes Lewis, and he runs it down for the first out. A lot of speed in that Giants outfield.
Well, the Rico Giants defense, Aaron Rowan 30 for 90, 333 batting average with runners in scoring position. Emmanuel Burris last 21 games is batting .360. John Bowker 9 home runs. No rookie has ever led the Giants. Well, the last rookie to lead the Giants in home runs at the break was Dave Kingman, 1972, with 21 dingers.
Argenis Reyes making his first major league start, 3 for 8 in the big leagues. Drove in his first run last night coming off the bench. I thought of something looking at that Giants defense. This may be, and correct me if I'm wrong here about the assumption that I'm making, this may be the first outfield that I've ever seen where the center fielder is the slowest of the 3 outfielders.
Yeah, you're right. That's
right. I mean, Lewis in left field can fly. Randy Wynn, even at 34, can still run. Rowan is a terrific fielder, but he's not nearly as fast as those other 2.
And it's interesting when you looked at teams in the offseason who were interested in Aaron Rowan. I always thought if Alou hadn't resigned, I always thought Rowan would have been a good mix for the Mets in left field if Alou wasn't part of the team, because I think he's a solid fielder, not as much speed of course and not as talented as Carlos Beltran, but he would have filled the gap there in left.
Certainly it'd be good if you needed someone to run into a wall.
Yeah.
Curveball taken for ball 1 by Reyes.
Well, he's got that kind of professional attitude you want in an older player. Plays the game hard.
And again, as he was with the Phillies, as he would have been with the Mets, and as he's not with the Giants, he would have been that complementary player rather than that front line player.
Yeah, like a 6th or 7th place hitter.
Right. Which the Mets could certainly use right now because they're missing their 2 corner outfielders who are, essentially their 5 and 6 guys, if not their 4 and 5 guys. Ground ball right back to Zitto. And Argenis Reyes retired for the 2nd out. So Zitto has set down the first 2. And now David Wright will come to bat.
Baseman, number 5, David Wright.
Well, you've got, let's see, about 3.5 hours more to vote for that final spot on the All-Star team. Mets.com or MLB.com. You can vote either place. And it seems these days that every team is putting on a full court press.
Yes.
For their guys to be voted on the team, certainly, but then in that final vote there's even more electioneering going on because you can concentrate on one guy.
Well, in a strange way, David is an all-star type player, belongs in the all-star game, but I don't think it would kill Jerry Manuel to have him have 3 days off, rest up, and be ready to go for that second half.
3-0 to David.
You know, people that, if you don't know how the All-Star game works, it's not only that you show up at the park on Tuesday and play. It is a full 3 days of events, dinners and cocktail hours and meet and greets, and I think there were what, 40 dozen baseballs when you come into the locker room that you have to sign.
40 dozen?
Yeah.
That's nearly 500 baseballs.
Yeah. Takes you about an hour and a half.
That's a lot of writers.
Right, Ralph?
Oh, a lot of writer's crap right there. Good job if you can use your offhand.
That's right.
Here's Beltran with right at first and 2 down. 57th walk David's drawn. He's moving up in those rankings. And Beltran swings the first one and pops it up to shallow center. Burris, the shortstop, called off by Rowan, the center fielder. And that retires the side. So Zitto holds the Mets at bay in the opening inning. We go to the second. Maine back to the mound with no score. Eliezer Alfonso leads off for the Giants against John Maine in the second. Alfonso had to sit out a 50-game suspension this season for violating the Major League Baseball drug policy. This is only the second game he's played for the Giants. He's played 20 games in AAA this year.
Yeah, they started that game. They lost it. He went 0 for 4. And he is, there's pictures in the dictionary next to free swinger. He just can't wait to swing the bat.
He must have studied under Miguel Olivo.
That's right.
Jose Castillo on deck, and then Travis Denker. Rather a no-name lineup for Bruce Bochy today. And Maine thought for sure he was going to get that call, but again, a little squeeze by Jerry Davis. And Maine starting to look a little annoyed.
Yeah.
2-2 now to Alfonso. And that's ball 3. And so for the 5th time in the first 6 batters, Maine has gone to a 3-2 count, only slightly through fault of his own.
Yeah, well, every time you make that pitch and you feel like you get the hit or out, you just a little air comes out of the balloon when you're out there.
3-2, threw it right down the middle and struck him out. What choice do you have? Alfonso down swinging for the first out.
You know, it's funny you say that, Gary, because when you have an umpire that has a tight strike zone, you have to remind yourself out there, okay, forget about hitting the corners. Let's get some movement on the ball. Keep the ball down. Let them put the ball in play, especially early. And then sometimes the umpire will come around for you after he's worked 2 or 3 innings.
So here's Jose Castillo, who's slumping right now, 5 for his last 30. 0 for 3 in this series. And he fouls the first pitch away. Ryan Howard, 2-run homer in the first inning off Braden Looper this afternoon in Philadelphia. And the Phillies are up 2-0.
That's his 26th now. 82 runs batted in.
And the go-ahead home run last night. So Howard's not only hitting them, he's hitting them in big spots, as the Mets know. 1-1 to Castillo.
Well, that's the reason you can't get crazy when Howard starts off slow like he has the past couple of seasons, because he is a 15 home run in a month guy.
And a 45 strikeout in a month guy. But, you know, I guess
good and the bad.
Right. Exactly. I mean, if he drives in 130 runs, you know, does it matter if he strikes out 225 times, which he might this year? 2-1 to Castillo. And Maine falls behind 3-1. So he has been to 3 balls on 6 of the 7 batters. And, you know, pitch count has been a big issue for John this year. Not usually because of this. It's usually that, the foul balls. In fact, Maine has had 376 pitches fouled off this year. That's .84 per batter faced, which is the highest rate among National League pitchers. And that has boosted his pitch count more than anything, just all those foul balls. 3-2, and he walked him. So a 1-out walk to Castillo, and Maine has now walked 3.
Well, if you are a high ball pitcher, you're more apt to ball either going to be
Travis Denker.
If you're a high ball pitcher, when it's contacted, more apt to be a foul ball. If you are a low ball pitcher, when contact is made, it's put in play, and that's why John has had so much difficulty having a low pitch count, and it looks like it's not going to happen today. 38 already with only 1 out in the 2nd inning.
Well, the guy we always compare him to is Sid Fernandez, because Sid had that rising fastball and he'd get tons of foul balls.
And Sid was a 6th-inning pitcher. I mean, even in 1985, he very rarely went past 6 innings because of that high pitch count.
So now Maine will take on the rookie Travis Dinker, who's making his 8th big league start. He's had 34 at bats, hitting at .265. And Maine challenges him with a fastball and gets a strike. Mets saw Dinker in San Francisco, and he had a couple of extra base hits against Met pitching. And there's a high strike, and it's 0-2.
Not a good slider from John. Once it just spins right in the middle of the plate. And that's a pitch I'm sure that Dinker thought is high.
So it's a very strange strike zone so far today. That's in there for a call, strike 3. No question about that one, as Dinker's down looking at the fastball, and Maine has his 2nd strikeout.
Well, not the best at bat for Dinker, as he did not swing at any of those pitches. And that fastball is the one that starts a little outside and darts back over that outside corner.
So 2 out. Castillo still at first, and now Barry Zitto, who has 2 hits this year. Lifetime .088 hitter, having spent most of his career in the American League. And he takes ball 1. Zitto had some very interesting comments to make today in the San Francisco Chronicle. He was asked about the fact that the Mets had courted him when he was a free agent, and he said one of his considerations in not signing with New York were the New York tabloids.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the recent sensational headlines with A-Rod and Madonna and stuff like that. And he said, I wouldn't have wanted to be a part of that.
Well, the thing about Barry, and he's one of the great free spirits of the game, great deep thinker about the game and other things in life. He loves to enjoy himself. Single guy. Plays the guitar, is going to go out at night, and didn't want any part of anyone knowing where he was.
So he landed in San Francisco, and it's probably better for him that he did. Middle of the 2nd at Shea, Mets and Giants, no score. Fernando Tatis leads off the home 2nd and takes ball 1 from Barry Zitto. Tatis making his 22nd start, playing right field today. He drives one to center field, chasing Rowan back, got turned around, and he couldn't find it. It rolls to the center field fence, and Tatis pulls in standing with a double. Well, Tatis hit one off the batter's eye for a home run earlier in this series. Now he drives one over Rowan's head.
Well, the problem with this for Rowan is this ball was knuckling, and you saw it change places 3 different times. He changed each time, trying to counter that knuckleball to center field. Couldn't do it. But we've seen that Fernando Tatis has some serious power for us. He's not a little man, but he's not by any stretch of imagination a Delgado-sized man.
Well, Delgado has been swinging like a Delgado-sized man of late. He's been crushing balls. Well, Tatis had the 1 year in 1999 when he hit 34 home runs for the Cardinals, and he never came close to duplicating that. And eventually was out of baseball for a couple of years in 04 and 05, but he has really resurrected himself. Speaking of resurrecting, that's what Delgado's done lately, and he swung at that pitch in the estimation of third base umpire Phil Cuzzi as he dropped the bat to avoid getting hit.
Well, I think that he was hit by that pitch too. That ball coming inside, the swing, maybe not. Maybe not. I thought he reacted like he had been hit by it. But then they checked, Jerry Davis checked down to the third base umpire, and he said he did go around and swing.
Right on his knuckles. Over the last 5 games, Delgado 10 for 22 and just crushing it. He had a couple of doubles in the game last night among his 3 hits. And you see what he's done in the month of July after struggling for the first 3 months of the season.
Well, if the Mets continue as hot as they are until Sunday, it's going to be interesting to see Thursday when they get back in Cincinnati if they're able to retain that, because that's always the thing you are doubtful about when your team gets 3 days off right in the middle of a great run.
1-1 to Delgado, and he takes high. Well, the other thing is, it's not going to be easy to keep this run going through Sunday, because the next 2 days the Rockies are coming in, and two pitchers who've pitched two of the best games against the Mets this season, Aaron Cook and Ubaldo Jimenez, are going in the first two games. You know, they took care of Lincecum, and they did a good enough job against Sanchez last night. Those are the two big guns in the Giants rotation. Giants have had trouble winning games at any other time except when Lincecum and Sanchez have pitched this year. So that's a good sign. When you're not only hitting, but you're hitting frontline pitching.
Zitto shakes that arm in the like he's a bowler over the reset button.
Lifted to left, and Lewis is there. That'll hold Tatis at second with the first out. So one away. Nick Evans coming up.
The left fielder, number 6, Nick Evans.
And there you see the note about Lincecum and Sanchez. Look at that. They're 14 and 40 when anybody else starts other than those two. And the Mets were able to beat both of them by shutting the Giants out. Here's Nick Evans, his first start since returning from the minor leagues. Had those 3 hits in Colorado, the 3 doubles in his big league debut, and struggled after that. Called up when Ryan Church went back on the disabled list on Tuesday. Well, it's the first Gary, Keith, and Ron outing here at Shea, and up in the mezzanine, the hundreds of fans decked out in Gary, Keith, and Ron t-shirts today.
Went up there and visited them. They're real nice people up there. That's a nice seat up there. It's not so bad. The only bad thing about going to see Gary, Keith, and Ron, the people that have bought the t-shirts up there, is that I had a feeling like I felt when I wanted to stay.
Hey, you want to sit there and
watch the game?
Sure, why not? Have a hot dog. It's very relaxing up there.
It's a pretty good seat. The only thing you don't see is right down the left field line. Other than that, it's a nice view.
Well, there'll be another Gary, Keith, and Ron outing at the ballpark on July the 22nd. And if you want to buy a t-shirt, help support some very deserving charities, and come out to a game, go to GaryKeithandRon.com.
We'll even try to get Keith here this time.
Well, that would be an extra added attraction. Got to leave them wanting a little more, right?
That's right.
1-1 to Evans with 1 out. And the curveball in for a strike. 1-2. Now, you were telling me Zito's refined his curveball a little bit?
He's tried to tighten it up. I think it became such a big looping curveball. He was having a hard time throwing the strike zone, so he's throwing it harder and a little tighter.
See Dave Righetti got in on the hands of Evans, and he flies one out to Lewis, who's had a busy first couple of innings. That's his 3rd put out already.
And no one better to teach Barry that pitch, because that's what Dave Righetti had. He had an outstanding tight kind of slurve. That's what Barry's trying to work on now. Something easier to get in the strike zone.
Brian Schneider now comes to bat. Now, you know, Rags was a lefty.
Yeah.
Does it matter? I mean, Dan Worthen was a lefty. Does it matter if you have a lefty pitching coach with a lefty pitcher?
I think what matters is that the pitching coach kind of did what you did. And so Righetti is a great pitching coach because he's done both the relieving and both the starting, so he can address both issues and knows what it's like to be out in that bullpen and pitching well or not pitching well. He knows what it's like to be on that mound and throwing a shutout or getting knocked out in the second, and knows how to recognize how to improve. And that's what he's trying to do with Barry, because he has to do it. They're going to have him to 2013.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Schneider hitless in his last 10 at bats. And we'll see how Zitto approaches this at bat. Remember last night, 2 out, Castro up, pitcher on deck, and Castro hit the 3-run homer that changed the game in the 4th inning. And the curveball misses to Schneider, 2-1.
With this base open, now you don't want to guess there's Johnny Maine on deck. You never want to guess as your hitter, but you have to anticipate that you're probably going to get a breaking pitch here, 2-1 with that base open.
There's another curveball high. It's 3-1.
I'm a good guesser. I wish I could have hit.
You could tell me what's coming. I wouldn't hit anything. So.
Yeah, they're going to walk him now.
So intentional ball 4. There's Zitto. Is third in the National League in walks, 5.2 walks per 9 innings. And, you know, when you've been as hittable as Barry has been this year, and his fastball has been in the low 80s most of the season, that's a bad combination.
Well, that whip, walks to hits to innings pitched, is about as good of an indication. If you're not a strikeout pitcher, good indication on how a pitcher's struggling.
111 hits and 54 walks in 92 innings coming in. Those are pretty unhealthy numbers.
A couple hit batters, so.
Well, John Maine was a little concerned about his hitting today more so than his pitching. He said yesterday that he thought he might have hurt that left arm while swinging the bat in Philadelphia, and he's not swung the bat in batting practice between then and now. So this is it's a little bit of uncharted territory for John in this turn at bat. And he fouls that one back right toward us. Tatis and Schneider aboard with 2 down. No score in the second. One, 2. Maine hits it hard down to first, but handled by Bowker. And after the brief bobble, he makes the play to end the inning. Well, it's such a perfect day. Ralph Kiner is here, make it even more perfect.
Let's go down and get the circle line. Go around around New York City.
Nice.
How about that?
I don't think I've ever done that. Have you?
I've never done that.
Hey, look at I'm in uniform for a change.
Very nice. It's about time they outfitted you correctly.
Order of the day.
There you go.
Fred Lewis swings and misses at first pitch from John Maine in the 3rd inning. Lewis flied to left his first time up. Met pitchers have put together 20 consecutive scoreless innings in this series. That matches their high from last year. And there's a strike to Lewis 0-2. It's not exactly Mays and McCovey, is it, in this Giants order?
I was thinking about that, but Alou, Mays, McCovey, how about Cepeda, how about Jim Murray Hart? And you look at the lineup here, you got a Lewis, a Burris, and a Wynn, and a Rowland, and a Banker, Bauer. Well, it's amazing how it changes. When Mays came up in 1951, he got off to a terrible start, and he wanted to go back to Minneapolis.
You want to be sent down, right?
Yeah, go back to Minneapolis. He hit him 440 or something back there. And they said, no, you're going to stay here. He hit a home run off Warren Spahn for his first Major League home run. Of course, he hit his first New York Met home run right here in this ballpark.
Don Carruthers.
Wow. Don Carruthers was the pitcher,
Giants.
And Fran Healy was the guy that called the pitch.
I knew it.
He was the catcher.
Lewis fouls one off Schneider.
You know, the Mets and Giants have been hooked up in some great games. The longest doubleheader ever played back in 1964. The second game went 7 hours and 23 minutes. And in that game, it was a triple play. Mays played shortstop. That was one of the great games of all time.
And the most amazing thing about the triple play is the Mets turned the triple play.
That's right. I think it was Cepeda that granted the triple play. Yeah.
14th inning.
I was down in the doing Kiner's corner, went down to about the 10th inning. And I was down there forever. And they set a shot up where they had a sack of beer bottles lined up in the shot. They shot me with all the empty beer bottles and the beer bottles down there. But I didn't have a drink.
I don't think you could do that today. 3-2 to Lewis. And he foul tipped it into the middle of Schneider. And that is strikeout number 4 for John Maine.
Well, he just really was pitching inside the Lewis. Lewis, a good low ball hitter. Anything waist high or above, you can see it ties up the young, talented left fielder for the Giants.
That doubleheader between the Mets and Giants in '64 started, what, 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
I think it started at 2. I'm not sure. They changed the the Blue Laws here in New York State.
Burris hits it to the shallow center, and that's the second out. But it ended about, what, 11 o'clock. Now, did you get a guest at the end of that?
I'm sure I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that John Daly, who had the great TV show on Sunday, came in to start the show at 9 o'clock. And he said, boy, I've been watching one of the great games of all time. Everybody switched off his show to the baseball game.
Never promote the other guy's products.
Yeah, exactly. Not a very good self-promoter was John.
Here's Randy Wynn, who walked and stole a base his first time up. And there's a strike. I remember when, the Mets played the 25-inning game with the Cardinals.
I had a guest.
And you did have a guest at 2:30 in the morning.
Maybe 3.
Yeah, maybe.
By the time I got on the air.
You had Bake McBride.
Bake McBride. He was a big man. Came on. I said, there's no way any player is going to come on this late at night. And that was the longest game to a decision ever played. The longest game I ever played was a 26-inning tie at 1-1, and both pitchers won the entire game.
Wynn fouls it back.
I had to do some research this winter, so I had to watch one of the older games that I pitched. Ended up being a good game because you never want to watch your bad games. So I watched this good game. I shut them out, shut out Pittsburgh, and it said Kiner's Corner coming up. I was so excited. I have the tape, so I have your Kiner's Corner, but you didn't have me as a guest. You had someone else. Wally Backman was the guest that day. A couple of hits.
You didn't pay enough money.
That's right. I didn't know. I thought you get money when you went on. You had to pay to get on.
That was only outfielders, no pitchers.
You'd probably been on too many times already that year. And Wynn goes down swinging. John Maine has his 5th strikeout, and the Mets now have 21 straight scoreless innings against the Giants.
The groundskeeper wants a lot of foul balls. He makes that turtle back infield.
Bowker plays the big hop and retires Reyes unassisted, 1 away. Here's your Mets upcoming schedule. Remember, all Mets games on SNY are available in HD, presented by IOTV. Rockies come to town tomorrow night for the final series before the All-Star break, and then after the break, the Mets will be in Cincinnati for 4 games. Remember, if you're in the car, listen to every Mets game on Sports Radio 66 WFAN. Argenis Reyes bats for the 2nd time. By the way, Jerry Manuel and Dan Warthen backed up something you said last night during the game, Ronnie, about Johan Santana, and one of the reasons why he was pulled. They were indeed thinking about Sunday, the last day before the break, and thinking that they might be able to use Santana in relief that day.
Wow.
Broken back grounder goes off the glove of Castillo and into foul ground. Reyes takes a turn at first, and he'll hold on there as Burris gets to it. So Argenis Reyes has another base hit.
Well, gets it sawn off the end of the bat, and that's the 2nd time he's thrown the bat today. The first time up, he threw it into the Giant dugout. This one works, though, as he gets it right past Castillo. Thinking double? Boy, you like that young energy, don't you?
He had a good idea about going for 2, but also the shortstop kept him from going down to second base.
So David Wright bats with a man on.
Another shattered bat.
We're getting used to those. It's an epidemic.
And it's been mainly because they have gone to a different type of wood rather than ash.
I wonder if it's that the maple breaks more or that it breaks differently.
Well, it certainly breaks differently. It shatters. And you got sharp pieces of the bat going out to to anywhere, foul territory or fair. And about 60% of the players are using maple bats.
We have already seen Carlos Delgado get cut by a broken bat in spring training this year. We saw umpire Brian O'Nora get cut a couple of weeks ago.
Was it the hitting instructor for the Pirates?
Yeah.
He got it the worst almost, didn't he? He got it a facial wound.
Well, what you worry about more than anything else are the fans in the front rows.
Yeah.
Because
They're watching the ball.
Right. The players and the umpires, they understand that they're in harm's way when it comes to those things.
And athletically, they can get out of the way.
Right.
Strapped to a seat down there.
0-2 to right. Grounded foul.
You know, Ralph, we're coming up to the All-Star game. I know you never played in one at Yankee Stadium where it's going to be this year, but what are some of your finer moments or finer memories of All-Star?
Well, I certainly remember the 1950 All-Star game because I hit a home run in that game in the 9th inning to tie the game up. And the game went 13 innings, and Red Sandys won it with a home run. And I did hit 3 home runs in 3 straight All-Star games. And I'm proud of that record.
Wow.
But to me, it was a great honor to be able to play in one of those games. And of course, you got people who hate to play in them and don't play in them. And who was the guy that said, "I ain't departing if I'm not starting"?
Terry Templeton.
Terry Templeton, the shortstop.
Hit hard down to third, booted by Castillo, and the Mets have 2 men on.
Well, that's got to be a base hit.
Yeah, hit off the end of the bat, but a very crazy hop. I think Castillo did everything you're supposed to do on this play. It's off the end of the bat, or it's jammed really, and the ball, there's no way for him to move. He's got to play it almost like a catcher or a goaltender. So he tries to block it with his body. And it just hit off the left arm, ran up his shoulder, and went to the shortstop.
Yeah, the one thing he did do right was he got the glove on the ground and came up with the ball, and that's the only chance you have there.
Well, they're going to charge an error.
Well, I'd get that scorekeeper if I were.
You know, looking at the replay, there's no way that's an error.
Yeah, there's no way to really play that. You know, he did everything he could to. Now, if he had olayed it, maybe played it to the side, you could think of it as an error. But did everything he could just to keep it in play, to block it.
He stayed in front, got the glove down, came up with the ball. As it takes that word hop. You know, one thing about hitting 400 today in today's game, with the gloves like they are, I don't think anybody's going to do it. Not even Chipper.
No. That is very strange. Has he always done that?
Shaking some life back in his arm.
A little flare over short. Base hit. Argenis Reyes heads home. Beltran drives in the first run of the game, and it's 1-0 New York.
Well, the inner dialogue that Barry Zitto must be having right now must be expletive deleted. Nice read by Argenis Reyes scoring that run.
Well, a broken bat hit by Argenis Reyes. A jam shot that took a bad hop that was ruled an error off the bat of right. And now Beltran with a little flair for a base hit to get a run in. And so much for that inner dialogue.
Zitto will take his guitar and go back home.
That's right. That's right.
His father was a ranger, a great ranger.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Tatis doubled over the head of Aaron Rowand in center field his first time up. So the Mets grab the early lead against a team that is just not scoring at all right now.
You know, I've never heard of a ball player that didn't want to play in New York. And for the reason that Zitto gave, he didn't want to go on the tabloid sheets. We're all looking to get our picture in those tabloids.
That's right.
Anywhere to get the publicity. And of course, in the old days before television and radio on broadcast, the only way you could get your name out to the public all over the country was to be in a newspaper column.
Now, did ball players back then have press agents?
No. I don't think. Well, possibly Williams might have had. There was a guy named Corcoran who was a PR guy for Ted Williams.
Because, you know, especially in New York back in 40s and 50s, you know, actors, actresses, musicians, they
all had press agents.
They made sure to get their names into those tabloid columns.
Well, you know, one time Kingman, who had real problems with the press, came to me and said, "Did anybody ever give you the type of press I got?" I said, sure, I look for that. I want to get my name in the paper. Just spell my name right. That was the whole thing.
Tatis drives one to the gap in right center field. White comes in to score. Beltran will be held at third. He's going to run through the stop sign and head home. The throw is cut off. It's a 2-run double for Fernando Tatis. And it's 3-0 New York.
Now Luis Aguayo tried to hold Beltran. That didn't work.
It was a little late. Nice hitting here by Tatis. Now he's got a double over the center fielder's head, and this one in the gap. Easy read for David Wright. And Beltran, with those long strides, turns the corner at second. He senses a run. He got to Aguayo. Aguayo has him held up here, but decides to proceed.
And a terrible relay play by the Giants. Second baseman out there to take the relay had no idea that he had to play at the plate.
Yeah, and the problem is that communication. As you look at Luis Aguayo, hands up, Aguayo. But Beltran had too much of a head of steam. But it's all about communication. The shortstop behind the second baseman has to be looking and yelling, home, home, home.
Denker had the ball as Beltran hit third base,
and
then
he was going to be an easy out.
Yeah, and then took a couple of crow hops before he released the ball. Here's Delgado taking inside ball one.
And you know, the Mets just had a conversation. You see Aguayo right there, right on our spot shadow. Nice going, guys. Holding up Beltran. He held him up early enough. It's just Beltran must have had a feeling.
It's a couple of points on your license, isn't it?
There you go. That's right.
Delgado swings to the breaking ball, and it's 1-1.
You know, I was saying that the Mets recently just had a meeting in that game, but the game ended up 10-9. Beltran threw a ball to third base that went by right, scored a run, made the game closer. Jerry got all his troops together, and he said, what we need to do when that happens is communicate. Get out there, you middle infielders. Tell your outfielders second base, so he will know not to throw that ball to third. Communication for the defense is so important.
Well, the Giants today have a rookie first baseman who's not used to playing first, a rookie second baseman, and a rookie shortstop.
But you're taught that from day one. And in big ballparks, you have to really overemphasize your yelling to where to throw the ball because you have a lot of noise.
Delgado hits one well to the opposite field, but Lewis gets over to the line and grabs it. And back to second goes Tatis, 2 down. Well, this was something that Jerry wanted to nip in the bud after it happened in Philadelphia, and he had that meeting here on Tuesday afternoon at 4:30, made sure that everybody heard him about talking and communicating and keeping each other informed.
And I think he was smart that he had it on the field. One, he had the field to show the guys what he wanted to have done. And secondly, as soon as that meeting was done, straight into batting practice. So a lot of times when you have a meeting in the clubhouse, as soon as you're done, people like ourselves want to know what happened.
Line to short, and Evans retired to end the inning. He had no media on the field after the 4:30 meeting.
So Zitto only gives up one hard hit ball in the inning, and the Mets score 3, giving John Maine the lead as we head to the 4th.
At a meeting of our board today, they voted permission for us to transfer the New York Giants franchise to San Francisco.
Does that mean you will definitely do it?
That's right.
Well, it was 50 years ago that the Giants made their way from New York to San Francisco, along with the Dodgers moving to Los Angeles. And you know, Ralph, you were playing in Pittsburgh then?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the feeling around the National League at the time that the teams moved to California?
I think that the National League, I'll say the Pirates, they thought it was going to be a good move because LA, we've played a lot of spring training games out there, knew it was a good, great town, growing, getting bigger and bigger, and looked like, and they had a good minor league team there. And so I think that the majority of players probably thought it was a good move. Although we hated to see New York go away because it was the place to go and get going. They had, of course, a lot of society writers that would talk about you if you wanted to say toot chores or whatever it might be. and you always knew that you were going to be put in one of those columns, like page 5, that type of thing.
Was there any concern on the part of the players about the travel and how that was going to be affected?
Well, you know, during World War II, the Browns were going to move to L.A. and they stopped that move. A fellow named Barnes wanted to take the St. Louis Browns baseball team and move it into L.A. and it was stopped because of the war.
Of course, they eventually moved to Baltimore and became the Orioles.
That's true.
6 strikeouts for John Maine as he gets Aaron Rowan for the first out. Aerial coverage brought to you by DirecTV. #1 fan. Meet the #1 sports provider.
Wow.
So when you guys first started traveling to the West Coast, what were you flying in those days?
Well, the great story was that the Pirates, we flew out in a DC-3, which is a small airplane, 2-engine passenger plane. And at that time, Dan Galbraith, the owner of the Pirate team, had a horse named Shadow Gay who won the Kentucky Derby. And he flew Shadow Gay, the horse, out in a jet. And so we were not too happy about that.
And a bigger jet than yours?
Oh, we didn't have a jet. We had to stop 2 or 3 times.
The horse was treated better than the players.
Wow, he was treated well.
He was probably earning more.
He was earning a lot more.
That's great.
Shadow Gay was the name of the horse. It was the Darby Dan Stables. And
Docker drives it to right center, and the Giants have their first hit of the game. Docker heads for second and pulls in there with a 1-out double.
They were Shadow Gay, and you guys are riding Enola Gay.
Yep. And we didn't like that. It was we thought it was a little bit prejudiced.
Well, of course, in those days, the horses had a better union than the ball players, but that's changed.
Yeah, but they didn't have any voice in anything. we at least had a guy that could talk. Taravaso.
Problem is, no one's listening.
Here's Eliezer Alfonso, who struck out his first time up.
Coffee break time for the boys.
'70 strikeouts now from Maine. 70 pitches now for Maine. 6 strikeouts through the first 3 1/3. So the pitch count certainly an issue again for John. Docker at second and 1 out. And good fastball, and it's 1-1 to Alfonso.
Well, we talked about, John, when he has that fastball up in the strike zone, 2 starts ago, had that dead arm, didn't have that life up in the strike zone, has it today.
Jose Castillo, the #7 hitter on deck. 3-0 New York. We're in the 4th. The Giants still have not scored a run in this series. It's a rarity they've had a runner in scoring position. They had one in the first inning. Wynn got as far as 3rd, and now Bowker at second with 1 out. On the ground past the mound, but Argenis Reyes to his right and makes a nice play. Made it look easy for the second out as Bowker moves to 3rd.
And a good play here defensively as he plays it off to the side there.
Well, he was close to second base to Shea to keep the runner Bowker close. That ball took a bad hop, came up on his hands, but when you're a good fielder, you have those soft hands, and that ball stays.
As long as you get the hands down, they can come up. You can't go down.
And that was the greatest impression that Argenis Reyes made in spring training, was his defense at second base. 2 out now. Castillo with the runner at 3rd. Walked his first time up. And has walked 3, struck out 6, allowed just the 1 hit. To the backstop. Schneider recovers. Can't make the toss, and the Giants have scored. Stop the presses. The Giants have scored. It took a wild pitch to get a run as Bowker comes in to make it 3-1 New York.
Well, just a slider, not even close from John Maine. That's in the other batter's box by Schneider. And nice read by Mr. Bowker. And good hustle.
So the Mets' bid for a third straight shutout is broken up. Last time the Mets had 3 straight shutouts was 1988. Mr. Darling, I believe you were part of that. In fact, that was you started it with the home opener in '88 against the Expos. Swing and a miss, 2-2.
Home opener. Who pitched the second and third game?
Dwight Gooden.
Dwight Gooden, maybe.
The second game was Bobby Ojeda pitched a 2-hitter against the Expos, and then Doc actually pitched a rain-shortened 6-inning 2-hitter against the Cardinals. So his hardly counted. That's what you always said when we got to opening day this year. You said, I never pitched opening day, but I got home openers.
Yeah, home openers I got. The one it's funny, that was payback, I guess, because the one in, I believe, 1985, I started against the Expos and I gave up 5 runs in 4 innings, so got knocked out.
2-2, and Castillo takes it high, full count.
Didn't Seaver set a record for most opening day games?
Yeah, I believe so. I think he had 11
opening games,
something like that.
Yeah.
This is the 8th 3-2 count for Maine already today, and Castillo pops it up foul, and that'll come out of play. And so John, despite allowing just 1 hit, is about to throw his 80th pitch working in the 4th inning. And so it goes.
And his body language, I think you've never seen a pitcher who's only given up 1 run and 1 hit look so frustrated out there.
Well, we've seen that a lot from him this year. He's such a perfectionist, and he knows that this is his issue, and he needs to get his pitch count down. And he strikes out Castillo. That is 7 strikeouts for John Maine in the first 4 innings. Giants finally score in the 22nd inning of this series. Mets have a 3-1 lead. Beautiful shot down the East River of Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges. Got that waterfall underneath.
I see that every day. It's remarkable.
Brian Schneider leads off in the home 4th inning. Takes ball 1 from Barry Zitto. Let's check in with Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin?
You know, guys, Brian Snyder's an interesting guy. He's a big memorabilia baseball collector. In fact, he told me the other day one of his first autographs, Darryl Strawberry. Also, one of his first was Ernie Banks, and he said Ernie was so nice to him that he got into the home run derby show. He used to go home and watch that all the time just to see Ernie in that show. But you know, his baseball blood really comes from his dad. His dad was a pitcher at the Naval Academy, also was a jet pilot as well. And you know, every time his dad was home, they'd go in the backyard, they'd throw tennis balls, and he'd take his BP, and he said he loved the routine. They'd put up a net to catch the balls from going into the woods, and even in the winter they'd put a space heater in the garage and have the net in the garage and just hit off a tee or a little soft toss, and he loved it. In fact, Brian was a pitcher like his dad was all the way until he was a junior in high school when he switched over and became a catcher. And he has a little bit of his dad, the adventure side in him anyway. You know, he was too young when his dad was a Navy pilot. He did have a couple pictures in the cockpit, but he got that love of flying. In fact, he had a chance to go on a ride with the Blue Angels last year, and well, that's pretty intimidating. In fact, he said they were going 7.5 Gs. He was very proud of the fact that he didn't pass out. I mean, vertical takeoff, all kinds of tricks, you name it, as Snyder goes down here. And actually last year in San Diego, guys, he had a chance to, through some connections, he had a chance to go out on a fighter jet 200 miles to sea and land and then take off from an aircraft carrier. He's a little bit of a daredevil. Wow. I think some of that will have to wait till he's done playing, though, some of the other stuff he wants to do. But very interesting guy off the field. He's got a lot of different interests. Big memorabilia collector, a little bit adventurous too. Guys, back up to you.
And that is our Bacardi's taste for life. That's fascinating. I can't even imagine what it's like to land one of those fighter jets on an aircraft carrier with the hook.
Yep.
Well, thank God they have a hook, or you go right out there to the aircraft carrier. If you don't have that hook, you're gone.
They call that the tail hook, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of the players collect memorabilia, and whenever they, you know, if they go into Cincinnati, you'll hear a lot of players will send over a bat and ask Ken Griffey Jr. to sign it. But you know, recently Manny Ramirez hit his 500th home run off Chad Bradford, And he asked Chad Bradford if he would sign the ball, and Chad was reluctant to sign the ball. He didn't really want to sign it, but he decided to because he had a reciprocal, a quid pro quo. It was Bradford's 500th game in the big leagues, so he sent over the lineup. Manny signed that, and he signed the ball for Manny.
Maine draws a walk, and Zitto will be kicking himself for that, his 3rd walk of the day, and now Jose Reyes will come up. No, it's such a strange thing being on the wrong side of history like that, like Al Downing was when he gave up Hank Aaron's 715th, or Tracy Stallard when he gave up Maris' 61st, or Steve Traxel when he gave up McGuire's 62nd. I imagine that a pitcher in that spot has got to have very mixed feelings about being a part of history. I mean, in one way you get remembered forever, but in another, you know, it wasn't a great moment in your career.
Well, I remember after the game that Pete Rose got the hit. Eric Shea, who was the pitcher, after the game, they asked him how he felt. He said, well, Carmelo Martinez in left field, I thought he should have made the play. And what a bad comment to have on a day where it's Rose's day.
Well, if you remember, Eric Shea, after he gave up that hit that broke the record, broke Ty Cobb's record, he sat down on the mound as they were feting Pete Rose. 3-0 now to Reyes. Now, I remember here at Shea when Rose broke Tommy Holmes' National League record.
Came out,
yeah, and Craig Swan gave up the hit.
Yeah.
And Swanee, I thought, handled it really well.
Now, Tommy Holmes was a left-hand batter, played with the Boston Braves. For years was involved with a newspaper promotion here for college players.
Yeah.
And then worked for the Mets for many, many years.
Tommy just recently passed away.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
So back-to-back walks issued by Zitto.
Guys, I remember talking to Mike Bassick, who gave up the Bond shot, and in a strange way, he was actually, I don't want to say happy, but he wasn't too upset over it. I mean, he got so much notoriety of it, and his thinking was, well, you know what? I'm not the only one that gave up a home run to Barry Bonds, so he was actually all right with it.
How about what about Branca giving them that home run to Bobby Thompson?
That's the most devastating one, I think, of all of those.
Argenis Reyes takes a strike, but Ralph has been so gracious.
Oh, he's
over
unbelievable.
The years, and he does appearances with Bobby Thompson all the time.
Much like our man Ralph Kiner, one of the world's classy gentlemen. So
Zitto putting himself in trouble with back-to-back walks. Argenis Reyes swings and misses.
You know, speaking of home runs, there's a broadcaster right in this town, Dwayne Kuiper, who had 1 home run in his major league career out of 3,379 at bats.
Who gave up the home run?
Steve Stone, and there's a cute story about that. Stone's Kuiper's son came up to Steve Stone, and he said, "My dad hit a home run off you." And he said, "Well, that's not unusual. A lot of guys did that." He said, "But it was his only home run in the major leagues."
Reyes fouls it off.
In fact, the other day I was standing in front of the Giant dugout. I was talking with Mike Krukow, and Dwayne Kuiper was there, and Krukow started asking me, "So Ronnie, how many home runs you hit?" I said, "You know, only 2, and it was really bad. They were in successive games, so imagine how much downtime there was." And he said they hit 5, and Kuiper looked at us and he said, "Will you guys please shut up?"
Couple of pitchers.
It's terrible. These are pitchers that they're talking about. But
he must have been pretty good to last that long, hitting only 1 home run.
He was very good defensive player. But the
David Wright waiting on deck. Barry Zitto so far has been unable to duplicate his East Bay numbers in San Francisco.
Boy, he had 1 great year for the Oakland team. Back in 2002, he won 23 and lost 5.
That was a Cy Young year, right, Ralph?
Yeah, it was a great year for him. Yeah.
Well, it's not been good sailing for those running mates in Oakland. Mark Mulder went down last night after only 16 pitches, hurt his shoulder again. Tim Hudson almost had his team no hit last night. It's getting to be a regular thing with the Braves. Reyes keeps fighting them off. How about that? Kuroda throws 7 perfect innings in the first game of the series, and then Derek Lowe throws 6 perfect innings against the Braves last night.
I tell you, I mean, I was on that Montreal team where Mark Gardner threw a no-hitter for 9 innings, lost it in the 10th, and then Dennis Martinez pitched a perfect game on Sunday. Imagine that happened to you.
It's been quite a turn at bat for Argenis Reyes, who had a broken bat base hit and scored the Mets' first run in the 3rd inning. Now batting here with Maine and Jose Reyes aboard. And he takes a call 3rd strike, curveball from Zitto. Second strikeout for Zitto. They both come in this inning.
Well, that's the best curveball he's thrown all day. Sharp, late break. Reyes looking.
Here's some of the folks working construction over at Citi Field. Taking a brief break to get a look at the game. He just put in the scoreboards. That's the work that they've been doing this week.
Wow. Over
at Citi Field. You know, you drive by it and it looks done from the outside, but there's still so much work to do on the inside. David Wright fouls the first pitch off.
When they built Candlestick Park,
there you see one of those
they talked about that being the greatest stadium.
Promise Danny will be back next homestand.
Might have been the worst. No question about that.
There you see the blimp shot of the inside of Citi Field. Our construction update brought to you by the New York City Union Carpenters and Contractors. There's the shot of the scoreboard that's just gone in at Citi Field. So it's starting to take shape.
Where's Danny Sessa? He's on vacation or what?
What's the deal with that? I understand Danny's at a union meeting.
Yeah,
couldn't join us.
They have a lot of meetings.
Getting some marching orders. Danny Sessa, he's character.
He's our Bud Melman.
3-1 to David Wright.
Oh, Pacific Bell Park in San Francisco is a very good stadium. Did a good job on that.
The most amazing thing, Ralph, that they did is they structured it so the wind can't get inside the stadium.
Yeah.
It's actually comfortable to sit there and watch a game at night in San Francisco.
The thing I like about that stadium is the glove that's out in left center field with only 4 fingers.
It's an old-time glove.
They said, what happened to the other finger? And someone said they gave it to the Dodgers.
Oh, that's outstanding. 3-2 now to David Wright, so the runners will be in motion with 2 down. And the curveball sits high for ball 4, and the Mets have the bases loaded on 3 walks by Zitto, with Carlos Beltran coming up, and that'll send Dave Righetti out to the mound.
And we're Righetti going down to the mound. You have to remember it was an no-hit, no-run game he pitched on July 4th.
That's right. 25 years ago, Ralph. Wade Boggs, the last out on a little slider.
Struck him out.
Struck him out. I just remember the look he had after the strikeout, where he kind of just threw his glove in the air, just like he was so exhausted with all the fans, I don't know, just clapping on every pitch, trying to will him through that no-hitter, and he finally got it.
That was one of Mel Allen's last great broadcasting moments. Osiris Matos is up in the Giants bullpen.
Well, you talk about Mel Allen and what a fantastic career he had. He was the broadcaster of all time.
Yeah. Is he from the South, like a lot of the great announcers?
Out of the South. Yeah, he was an attorney
from Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama. Went to the University of Alabama.
Ball 1 to Beltran. Of course, Red Barber, who also was huge here in New York, was also from the South. He was from Georgia.
And he also was the first broadcaster to broadcast in Cincinnati, a night game there.
Wow. 1-1 to Beltran, who drove home a run with a base hit his last time up. 63 RBIs now for Carlos. And he has really been moving up the list of league leaders in RBIs, and a chance here. Mets have been terrific at driving in runs with 2 outs over the last week. Beltran pops one foul down the third base side. That'll go out of play. And it's 1-2.
Of course, you got to talk about Vince Scully when you talk about great announcers. And he had a great line about Candlestick Park. He said it has all the charm of a graveyard.
Vinny's usually so upbeat. 90 pitches now for Zitto in the fourth inning, so both these pitches are not going the distance today.
The ball to strike ratio almost even for both of them.
Well, part of that's them, and part of that is Jerry Davis calling the balls and strikes. 1-2 though to Beltran, and the curveball bounced toward third, and Castillo will go to second for the force play that ends the inning. So Zitto walks 3 in the inning and survives. We head for the fifth at Shea, the Mets with a 3-1 lead.
Second baseman, Travis Anchor.
Last year, John was 10-4 at the All-Star break, and probably deserved to make the All-Star team. This year, he's 8-6. Has not been quite as dominant as he was the first half of last year, but what he's hoping for is a more consistent season.
Yeah, and maybe he'll have that second half like the first half he had last year, and it put him in great shape.
Travis Denker took a call third strike his first time, and he lines one on one hop to Argenis Reyes, who calmly throws him out for the first out. So Harry Zitto, right before he stepped into the batter's box, had a rather lengthy conversation with the home plate umpire Jerry Davis.
He's a free spirit, though. You never know what he's talking about. It's because he's a very cerebral kind of pitcher. Has a lot of different interests. You talk about his father, Joe, was a composer, conductor, arranger for Nat King Cole.
Right.
His mom, Roberta, also sang backup for Nat King Cole. And Barry's sister, Sally, has her own rock group, and he plays guitar for that group. So, well-rounded Renaissance man.
He decided that he wanted to be a pitcher, and his dad went out and did the research to find out how to best enable that and put him under the tutelage of Randy Jones.
Randy, a good pitcher for the Padres mainly. Although he got the MVP, the Cy Young, not the MVP. He got the Cy Young over Jerry Kuzman, which I thought was a real mistake.
A mistake.
76?
Yeah, I think 76. Randy was one of those guys, though, that you love to play behind. I mean, he was really would have an hour-and-a-half games.
Yep.
70, 80 pitches total.
You get him against Jim Cott.
Yeah.
He could set records.
The fastest game ever played was a 51-minute, 9-inning ball game.
Keith's dream.
He would love that.
Giants and Phillies, 1919, somewhere around
Somewhere
there.
back then, yeah.
Now it takes 51 minutes just for the commercials.
That's right.
Well, they had no television in those
The
days.
station would be in dire straits.
that's
It was a
just
51-minute game.
And Ronnie, that's just your commercials.
That's right. That's right. Oh my God, I'm not part of the solution. I'm part of the problem.
No.
Again.
No. You're not, because you're not Giuseppe Franco. Get fouled by Zitto, and it's still 2-2.
Yeah, I won't be selling any hair straighteners.
That's a kid with mixed emotions.
Saw a lot of young kids today. I guess they're just baseball fans with Yankee shirts on. Like, I don't know what the thought process to come to Shea and wear your Yankee jersey.
You're looking for a fight.
I guess so, but these are little guys.
They
They don't even know how to fight yet.
They haven't found out yet.
blame it on their parents.
Okay.
Ninth full count for John Maine. There's one of those shirts. (3-2), and he walked him. So Zitto walks Maine. Maine returns the favor and walks Zitto, his fourth walk of the game. And I guess whatever Zitto said to Jerry Davis paid off in the short run.
Fred Lewis.
I need to up my on-base percentage, Jerry. What can you do?
Right.
So here's Fred Lewis, who's flied out and struck out. So you've got Zitto, who's thrown 91 pitches through 4 innings, and Maine, who's thrown 91 pitches through 4 1/3. And Lewis takes ball 1. It is just not a comfortable day to be pitching when the strike zone is the size of a postage stamp.
Carlos, nice move here coming in and settling Maine down, saving Dan Worth in the trip and giving him words of encouragement as Maine continues to look frustrated. You can see all the Mets pitchers there starting to grow their own beard, I guess, kind of solidarity.
Team-wide trend. They have been turned loose. Pedro Feliciano doing some stretching, getting ready as Lewis watches wide, 2-0. You were talking, Ralph, about that 1976 Cy Young race. Randy Jones for the Padres went 22-14 that year, 2.74 ERA. Koosman was 21-10, 2.69. So it couldn't have been much closer on the number.
Jerry, I thought, should have won the whole thing.
And now it's 3-0 to Lewis, and Maine getting very frustrated.
I think the difference would have been because Randy Jones was not a strikeout pitcher. Coos had to have 2+ in strikeouts, right?
Sure. Jones got all those ground balls with those sinkers.
Yeah.
Of course, Randy Jones would later become a Met.
That's right. He did play for us. Yeah.
Well, that is pure exasperation.
Randy had great control. It was a kind of a spot pitcher.
Yeah, it kind of threw 3/4 across his body, right?
Right, yeah. And then the only thing he didn't control was on a flight home from somewhere in the east to San Diego. He was driving home and ran into a tree. That didn't help.
Carlos Meneses just called back up yesterday when Tony Armas went on the disabled list. So Meneses the first man up in the bullpen. Well, it's different.
Inside out.
3-0 to Lewis, and he takes a strike. Yeah, the strikeout numbers from 1976. Koosman had 200. Jones had 93.
Yeah.
Two different kinds of pitchers. 3-1 to Lewis, taken outside, ball 4, and so back-to-back walks issued by Maine, and he's now walked 5. And now the tying runs are aboard for the Giants with Emmanuel Burris coming up. What do you do when you're in a situation like this, Ronnie, other than throw the ball right down the middle?
Well, I think what happens is that, the strike zone's small, but also John is starting with being exasperated, with being frustrated. The body language you sometimes portray out there gets the umpire. It's a long game. There's lots of walks. The umpire is getting frustrated too. There's some back and forth. I think that you got to throw the first one down the middle, but I think the key for John, I know he has all that life upstairs, is just try to keep that ball down, try to get them to put the ball in play. But just walking the pitcher and Fred Lewis just lets you know that he just does not have his control today, and now up 0-2.
The other thing too, Ron, is the fact that pitchers can really get maybe a little more location out of a curveball than they can a fastball, but he doesn't have that kind of control.
Yeah, but that's a great point, Ralph, is that sometimes the catcher will keep putting one down. You go ball 1, ball 2. Sometimes you got to mix it up with all the pitches that'll bring the fastball around.
Now ahead on Burris, 0-2. Burris has flied out twice today, and he fouls back the changeup. Zitto at second and Lewis at first with 1 out.
Zitto is going to have a tough time trying to score on a base hit to the outfield.
Yeah, he's got a mini lead.
And the Mets are playing very shallow, particularly in center and left against Burris, who does not have a home run this year. 0-2, up and away with the fastball. Well, Maine now up over 100 pitches.
And he missed that pitch with a really way outside pitch. That's not good.
That ball was supposed to be a purpose pitch. There's 100 pitches now, 57 strikes, 43 balls. That was supposed to be a purpose pitch inside. It missed up and away out of the strike zone.
3 feet.
And a foul tip held by Schneider, strike 3. And that is 7, making 8 strikeouts now for John Maine.
Well, this one again misses the catcher's glove, but has so much life upstairs, able to throw that by Burris.
Let me ask you a question, Ronnie.
Yeah.
If Maine's left arm is still bothering him at all, that lead arm, would that have an impact on his control?
Absolutely. That lead arm is what you try to yank to the catcher and around to get you on top of the ball, to get the ball down. And I think that's where he might be missing with his control, is that he kind of is, leaning forward, getting going to the plate, but doesn't have a lot behind it. So the arm is just kind of following. It's not being directed where it wants to go.
Now Randy Winn with 2 out and 2 on. Winn has walked and struck out, and he takes well out of the strike zone. And the amazing part about all this, as you look at the blimp shot, is that through all of this agony that Maine has put himself through, in his last start he allowed 1 hit, the home run by Ryan Howard, and in this start he's allowed 1 hit, the double by Bowker. And Winn swings and misses at the fastball, 1-1.
And I think that your preparation in between starts throws this ball right by Winn. There's got to be a part of you, if you're John, that there's a little worry, because it's been to have that kind of cramp in your forearm and never have it before. That unknown has got to be something that at least has to play a part in your preparation in between starts.
John with 8 strikeouts today, matching his season high. And again, he throws it by Winn. Of course, John had a 14 strikeout game last year in his final start of the season against the Marlins.
Well, he's throwing it up there, and they keep swinging at it, these San Francisco Giants.
That was a real help me out swing right there.
Thank you very much.
Aaron Rowand on deck. Maine trying to make sure he doesn't get up in this inning. About to throw his 105th pitch, with the tying runs on base in the 5th. Winn would not chase that far, and it's 2-2. Ryan Howard has his 2nd home run of the game in Philadelphia, and the Phillies are now up 4-1 on the Cardinals in the 6th. That's 27 now for Howard. Two to Winn. Fouled away.
It's gotten to the point now where John cannot find the strike zone with his changeup. The slider, the last one he's thrown, went to the backstop for the only run for the Giants. So really, he's just throwing 1 pitch, that fastball up in the strike zone, and still only 1 hit, still only 1 run.
Is this more about Schneider giving him a breather than anything else?
I think so, because he just keeps, throwing harder and harder.
He's throwing hard. I mean, he's not throwing lollipops up there.
But this is more like throwing for John, not really like pitching, is it? I mean,
big difference.
There's not a lot of setup to the hitters here, just
not at all.
Straight stuff.
And if you're a hitter, you're going to look fastball. Of course, this is not the count to look for a fastball when it's 2-2, but you got to think that way.
Somebody have a hat trick? 3-2 now to win.
Well, he's got to get this pitch in there, or he might leave the ball game without a win.
And it's going to help Zitto now, who can score on a base hit now when he's 3-2-2.
He can go.
So the runners get set to go. The 10th 3-2 count for Maine in 5 innings. 3-2 to Winn. Fouled away.
Winn had a little better swing at that pitch. Fastball not as high, just the way enough.
This will be the 8th pitch of the at-bat to Randy Winn. Runners go, 3-2.
Line the other way toward the left field line. This could tie the game. Zitto comes in to score. Lewis turns third. He'll score easily. It's a 2-run double for Randy Winn, and the Giants have gotten even at 3-3. So all the hard work by Maine, and Winn finally beats him.
Well, we saw that up in the strike zone, he was fooling these hitters once he lowered that pitch. Of course, more in the style for Winn. Zitto scores, and that's one running style, and this is another one here. Lewis gets on it and scores that tying run.
Well, John needed one more strike to qualify for a win. Now he'll leave in a tie game with a chance not to win, but a chance to lose. This call to the bullpen is brought to you by Verizon. Switch to Verizon Fios, TV, internet, phone. Maine's day comes to an early end. Well, John Maine struck out 8 in 4 2/3 innings, but he walked 5 and he could not seal the deal in the 5th inning. And after a couple of walks and 109 pitches, he gave up the 2-run double to Randy Wynn that tied the game. Now Carlos Muniz will take over for him, trying to get that final out in the 5th.
Well, I always say from the last couple seasons, he's on that Heath Bell shuttle as Carlos Muniz, called up for the 4th time to the big leagues. Tony Armas, of course, went on the disabled list. Muniz here to get this big out in the 5th with Randy Wynn at second base with a double.
Aaron Rowan will try and get that lead run in. Rowan has walked and struck out. So Wynn battling through the 3-2 count after Maine got ahead of him. Now Rowan up against Muniz. When last we saw Muniz, he was giving up the walk-off home run to Troy Glaus in St. Louis last week. And the slider taken high for ball 1.
Muniz just the opposite of John Maine. You're going to see plenty of sliders from Muniz.
And Rowan takes the slider low and away, 2-0. Jerry Manuel asked his bullpen for 4 innings last night, and they were perfect. In fact, the Met bullpen has retired 18 consecutive hitters coming into today. Now you're asking for 13 outs from your bullpen. Foul back, 2-1. And Jerry said one of the factors in taking Santana out after the rain delay last night was that he had a rested bullpen. And Heilman gave him 2 perfect innings, and Sanchez and Smith each gave him 1. Now you have to go a little deeper into your pen with Maine leaving this game in the 5th.
You know, it's interesting. They think they might use Santana on Sunday.
Inside, and it's ball 3 to Rowan.
Tom Seaver always used to tell me, he said, when you make your last start before the All-Star break, you go into the manager and you tell him that you're ready for Sunday. He goes, you know how many wins I got on a Sunday?
Well, he was that good.
He would come in and pitch, you know, the 6th inning or the 6th and 7th, and the Mets would score. Not pick up a cheap win, but pick up a win, you know?
Yeah.
That used to be very prevalent last day before the All-Star break. It rarely happens anymore. Slider pulled foul when it's 3-2. It used to be an all-hands-on-deck kind of thing with your starters on that last Sunday.
Now it's all hands on the phone.
Well, you already have 7 or 8 guys in your bullpen, so it's not like you have a need for that extra relief pitcher. And after all, how many starters ever pitch in relief now between starts? 3-2 to Rowan. And Muniz gets in on his fists. Back comes Schneider, and he grabs it to end the inning. Rowan spikes his bat in disgust. Muniz comes on to get a big out, but the Giants able to tie the game against John Maine. Couple of walks put him in jeopardy, and we start even halfway through. As Maine heads toward the clubhouse, Fernando Tatis, who has 2 doubles already today, pops the first pitch up. And the second baseman Travis Denker makes the call. And on 1 pitch, Zitto, who threw 91 pitches through 4 innings, has the first out. So 1 away now, Carlos Delgado, who's been up twice and fly to left field both times. Delgado 5 for 9 in this series, and continuing his resurgence. Good curveball from Zitto had him leading back, 0-1.
You know, one of the things that Delgado had happened to him, they put the shift down against him his last time up. Runner on first base and no one out. And of course, they had 3 men on the second base side, and he hit the ball left field and didn't advance the runner. You wonder if he was thinking at all about just hitting the ball on the ground to the shortstop side. one of the things that's never recorded in box scores or really talked about much is good at bats and moving runners up with outs.
Delgado hits it well to left center field. Chasing back is Rowand, and he gets there. 2 out. That's so interesting, isn't it? They play that huge overshift on him on the infield, but they play him straight away in the outfield. And if they'd had the shift on in the outfield, there's no way Rowand gets that ball.
Yeah, you know, that's just from the charts, because the charts will show that if he hits the ball on the ground, he's going to be more apt to pull it. But if he hits the ball in the air, he's going to be more apt to hit it straight away. So that's why you get that kind of defensive alignment from almost all the teams that face Carlos Delgado.
And the one ball he does hit in the ground and pulls is the curveball.
Yeah.
Nick Evans 0 for 2 in his return to action today. Nick has fly to left and hit a soft liner to short. Mets have had only 4 hits today. The Giants only 2. But there have been 10 walks in this game, 5 apiece for each of the 2 starters. Fastball for a strike, and Zito's starting to look a lot sharper. 1-2.
He's throwing the ball harder right now than he has in this year anyway what I've seen.
Yeah.
And Evans goes the other way into right. Good sliding catch by Wynn to end the inning. So Zitto sets the Mets down 1-2-3 for the first time.
Everyone up on your
We
feet
played
and
5 with a 3-3 game, and our thanks to Ralph Conner. Thanks for joining us, Ralph.
Thank you, Jerry. It's a pleasure.
Thanks,
good
Ralph.
having you.
Thank you, Ron.
Back up to Greenwich.
Yep. Back up in the woods.
He'll be back from the woods before you know it. John Bowker doubled and scored the first Giants run of this series in the 4th inning. Carlos Muniz got the final out in the 5th, stays on for the 6th, and throws low to Bowker. John Maine threw 109 pitches over 4 2/3, allowed 2 hits, 3 runs, 5 walks, 8 strikeouts, and a wild pitch. A completely frustrating afternoon for John, who obviously had good stuff, just could not throw enough strikes and couldn't last.
Yeah, he never got into a rhythm out there. It's almost like, you know, the strike zone was very small early in the game, and I think that led to some frustration. It led to some anger, and it looked like some anger he could never get rid of. And he didn't have that game where he was able to change speeds and hit different parts of the plate, inside and outside. Really just had that good moving fastball.
And now Muniz walks Bowker on 4 pitches to lead off the 6th inning. And Johnson has had problems with his elbow and his shoulder. And now a year and a half later coming back to try and fortify that Marlins pitching staff. And that would be huge for them if he can be a shadow of his former self, as Scott Schoenweis gets up at the Mets bullpen. Muniz putting himself in jeopardy by walking the leadoff batter here in the 6th. Bowker not a whole lot of speed at first. Alfonso's 0 for 2, still looking for his first hit of the season. Skies one, shallow left. Nick Evans shading his eyes as he comes in and puts it away for the first out. Back to first goes Bowker, 1 away. That'll bring up Jose Castillo. Castillo has walked and struck out 0 for 1.
Third baseman Jose Castillo.
Barry Zitto just had his best inning of the game. Pitcher spot is 2 spots away. What do the Giants do if Zito's spot comes up? Castillo takes a rip, 0-1.
Of course, it depends on who they have on base. If it's a guy in first and 2 outs, well, there won't be that case anyway.
Well, they could have 2 guys on base with 2 outs.
Then I think you hit for him.
And that's why Jack Tashner is up in the Giants bullpen. Giants have Ray Durham, among others, on the bench to pinch hit today from the left side, switch hitter. Off the corner, and it's 1-1 to Castillo. Jose Castillo at one time a very bright prospect with the Pirates. He was their starting second baseman and hit for some power early in his career. They wound up moving him to third base to accommodate Freddie Sanchez, and things just went sour for Castillo. Go to first and back standing is Bowker.
Baseball is littered with players like Castillo who have power but are not power hitters, and that's one of the problems for some infielders, is that they learn how to hit for power but never learn how to hit for average first, and then the power will come.
1-1, and that's off the plate. 2-1. Well, you could say that that's what happened to Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
You know, a guy who had one great power season early in his career, but then pitchers learned how to pitch to him and he couldn't adjust.
And you always feel as though, it's like, in a weird, strange way, Andy Chavez went through it, where every time he'd hit a couple of home runs, he'd go in a slump for a while. Andy, of course,
and he had to learn that he wasn't a power hitter.
Yeah, and he does have power, and he's going to hit 4 or 5 home runs in the course of the year, but his game is that beautiful game of small ball that he's been playing so far for the Mets, getting an off day, rare off day today.
And he has to pick his spots for the long ball. We call it that the World Baseball Classic swing.
That's right.
Because he had the 2 home runs for Venezuela. Hit to right field, and Tatis going back and makes the grab. Made it adventurous, and that's the second out. It's a little different having Tatis in right rather than Endy.
Yeah. Well, Endy, like Jerry Manuel said, Endy is one of the few outfielders. They gave a Gold Glove to a fourth outfield. He'd win it every year. That's how good he is.
Second baseman, Travis Denker.
So 2 out. Travis Denker, the batter. Denker has struck out and grounded out 0 for 2.
Unusual size for a second baseman, Travis Denker. He looks like a catcher. I mean, he's thick.
Travis Denker acquired from the Dodgers last summer in a deal for pinch hitter Mark Sweeney. I think it was the first deal between the Giants and Dodgers in like 22 years.
Yeah.
It's like cats trading with dogs.
Yeah, they don't like each other.
Zitto out on deck, but you have to think if Denker gets on here that Bochy will hit for Zitto. He's thrown 100 pitches already. Slider by Muniz, 1-1. A little activity around the bat rack there. Looked like Durham grabbing a bat. Fastball on the corner. Good pitch by Muniz. 1-2. That's a call that's been hard to come by today. Backer, no threat to be running. Let's see, the Giants now have 8 hits in this series in 23 innings.
It's just hard to win games, but they've gotten back into this one. They got back in because of the walks.
Tough way to try to win, though, on a regular basis. Slider in there for a call, strike 3. Muniz gets Denker looking and works around the leadoff walk. We head for the bottom of the 6th at Shea. Still tied at 3.
Congratulations to these.
It was not. Well, I mean, Frankie had a couple of good years for the Mets, but that was a trade that eventually helped the Twins a whole lot more than it helped the Mets.
Well, Aggie was great, of course, right? David West had a couple of decent years.
Certainly, he was a key for them out of their bullpen in '91 when the Twins won it all.
Just watching, though, the interaction between Frankie V, Frank Viola, and John Franco was worth the price of admission. I mean, these are 2 guys that were teammates at St. John. Couldn't get 2 more different people and personalities.
That's very well put.
I'll leave you guessing at home which one is which.
Let's just say that John had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Zitto doing a little talking to himself after falling behind Schneider 3-1. Chris Aguila has come out on deck to pinch hit for Muniz. And
Wow.
Schneider takes ball 4, and that is walk number 6 issued by Barry Zitto. And Aguila bunts it foul.
Being a little too fine there by Chris. You know, showed that picture of Barry Zitto. Sometimes the manager takes you out because it's the right move. Sometimes the manager takes you out because he wants to lefty-lefty or righty-righty. And sometimes the manager takes you out because he's real angry at you. I think it was the latter with Barry Zitto. Facing Brian Schneider, lefty-lefty, 8th hitter in the order, and a walk.
We saw Ray Durham, who took over at second base as part of the double switch. A little bad 9th. Pitcher hits 8th. Aguila gets the bunt down, and Romo will have to go to first with it. Durham covering. So Aguila moves the lead run to second base. 1-4 on the sacrifice.
Oh, nice watch of defense. You're going to have second baseman Doran come over. Shortstop covering second base. First baseman, third baseman in. Pitcher makes the play as he comes straight in. You hear the catcher on that thing is letting the pitcher know, Romo, 1-1-1, because they had no play at second base. And as soon as the third baseman does not make that play, he's got to hustle back, not as much with Brian Schneider, who doesn't have great speed, but if you have a Reyes out there, you might see a guy try to make the turn, take 2 bases on you.
So now Jose Reyes, who's 0 for 2 and a walk. Pickoff try, and Schneider got back. That was dangerous for Brian.
Well, Romo was a little late. Great move by Burris. He was already there. And we talked about the daylight. As soon as you see a tiny bit of daylight, that's when you have to turn into pitcher. He missed that just by a second.
Schneider taking that lead deep behind the bag. And Reyes hits it in the air to center field. Rowan right there waiting. And there are 2 out. So Schneider still at second with 2 away. One Reyes couldn't get it done. Now another will try.
The second baseman.
By the way, we're told by our good friends at the Elias Sports Bureau, this is the first time in Mets history they've ever had 2 guys with the same last name hitting 1-2 in the order. Wow. The last time the Mets had 2 players with the same name hitting back-to-back in the batting order. Any idea? They were hitting 8th and 9th in 2003. Argenis Reyes 1 for 3 today. And it's inside for ball 1.
Jones? No. I was thinking Bobby Johnson. Who do you got?
They were related.
Oh, of course, of course. The Glavine brothers.
Yeah.
Late in the season.
Mike Glavine hitting 8th, Tom Glavine hitting 9th in 2003.
And Reyes drives one to right center field, cutting across his win, and he makes the running catch.
Ray Durham takes ball 1 from Schoenweiss, who pitched in the opening game of this series. Scott pitched a 1-2-3/8 inning on Tuesday night. Fred Lewis on deck, and left-hand hitter, and then the switch hitting Emmanuel Burris. And Schoenweiss trying to paint corners, not a good idea today, and it's 2-0.
That's what you have to, one of the things you have to do as a relief pitcher. It's not only do you watch the game how to pitch guys, but you want to watch and see what the umpire is giving the pitcher. That's something you can use to your advantage when you come into the game.
Popped up on the right side. Argenis Reyes with the sunglasses on. Puts it away for the first out. Now, Jerry Davis has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't recall him being this stingy.
Yeah, I've always thought it's Jerry, one of the good umpires, solid umpire. But, you know, this constant evaluation that they have from the home office here in the city, where they are evaluated on their strike and ball calling ability according to Quest Tech, I think that you will get at times umpires who change from game to game because of the grade they might have gotten from the previous few games.
The funny thing about that is that when they revamped the strike zones, you look at the Questec camera, when they revamped the strike zone, one of the points of emphasis was that they wanted umpires to hunt for strikes.
Yeah.
That's the wording that they used, and it seems as though we've kind of gone the other way in the last year or so, that there are fewer strikes being called, not more. Swinging bunt goes past the pitcher. Reyes with a nice play, and he gets Lewis with that silly head-first slide. A little slug bunt by Lewis. Almost worked, but not quite.
Well, he brings it down, and he wants to hit that harder, get it to the second baseman. The only problem is he's hitting into the strength of one of the infields right now for the Mets. We saw this in spring training. We were so impressed with the hands and quickness and hand-eye coordination of Argenis Reyes. And once it gets by Schoenweiss with the dive, nice play by Reyes. And every time you see a pitcher dive like that, I cringe, because the last time I dove on something like that, broke my thumb in 1987.
Yeah, but at least he was diving for a good reason. Why was Fred Lewis diving into first base?
No, bad.
It's just a terrible play. 2 out and nobody on. Here's Emmanuel Burris, who's 0 for 3. I mean, you can get hurt that way, and it slows you down.
Yeah, there's nothing good that can happen from that. The only time you maybe want to see someone go, if the first baseman is coming off the bag, and now you want to try to get under him. But there, all you're going to do is catch a hand into a cleat or jam it against the bag.
Unless you're trying to avoid a tag, it's a bad play. 1-1 to Burris. Because as soon as your legs stop churning and you go in the air, unless you're Superman, you'll lose momentum. The point of keeping your legs moving is to keep your momentum going.
Well, if that was quicker, the guys who run the 100-yard dash, or 100-meter dash, sorry, too old, I remember the 100-yard dash, would dive at the end.
Reyes throws out Burris. A 1-2-3 inning for Scott Schoenweiss. 7th inning stretch time at Shea. Mets and Giants tied at 3. David Wright's been on base 3 times with 2 walks and an error. He's scored a run. Officially 0 for 1 and 1 for 8 in this series.
And he hits a breaking ball down the left field line. Fair ball bouncing into the corner. Stays in play. Wright heads for second, and he's in standing with a leadoff double. Just kept that ball fair down the left field line on the slider by Romo. And he's only got an hour and a half left to vote.
Well, he's making his case. Just keeps this fair down the line. Stays in play. Lewis, of course, not going to have any chance against the speedy Wright. And the Mets have a start.
So now Beltran will try and get that lead run in from second base. Carlos is 1 for 3. Drove in the Mets' first run with a 3rd inning single. Carlos now with 63 RBIs. Started the day tied for 9th in the league in runs batted in. And he drops a bunt, foul. And the fans boo. A lot of people do not like that play from your cleanup hitter.
Well, I've said it before, just because you put someone in the cleanup spot doesn't make him a cleanup hitter. You put someone in the first spot does not make him a leadoff hitter. That being said, with Tatis behind him, although Tatis has hit very well, I would like to see Carlos. He's got great back control, taking a shot at pulling this ball, getting a base hit, at very worst getting right to third base.
And that's the thing, you know, the way that Carlos has pulled the ball this season and hit the ball hard to the right side.
And against the slider ball pitcher, a guy is going to give you a ball to pull.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's picking your spots. If you were batting right-handed, you might think differently. Or facing a very hard thrower. Romo trying to keep the ball away from him, and it's 2-1.
And I guess the thought process, as you see Tatis for Beltran thinking about a bunt there, is that it's important to get 1 run here, because we've watched the Giant offense. 1 run might be enough with the way the bullpen's thrown for the Mets. But Carlos is just one of their hottest hitters now, swinging the bat really well. Take a shot.
Pops it up. Out behind the mound, every infielder converges, and Burris takes charge to make the grab. The other thing that Beltran could have been thinking with the third baseman playing back is, you know what, I'll drop down the bunt, we might get first and third.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing either, but as it turns out, he's unable to advance right.
I think against a guy like Sergio Romo, and I know he's a rookie and, you know, inexperienced, but in a hot spot here, you would have to think that going through the heat of your order, heart of your order with Beltran, Tatis, and Delgado, then one of them is going to be able to get him in. You also have the threat of Wright stealing a base.
Mets are now 2 for 12 today with runners in scoring position. Tatis has one of those hits, a 2-run double in the third. He has 2 doubles today. And Tatis takes a slider for a strike. Carlos Delgado waiting on deck. Mets have 5 hits. The Giants have but 2. But the game tied at 3 in the bottom of the 7th. That mound looks awfully small from up there. Sergio Romo from Raleigh, California. Where's that?
I don't know. It's funny you asked that because I was looking at it today and I was thinking, boy, Raleigh sounds like it's out east, like Riverside area, that kind of.
Not the well-traveled parts.
No. Hot parts, though.
Probably. Out in the desert. The 1-1 fastball away, and it's 2-1 to Tatis.
It's pretty funny. Our Elvis has left the building, Ralph Kiner, and when he leaves, figures since we don't want him around anymore. No, we want him around. He just takes off. He always leaves the scorecard. This scorecard, after the game is done, is always wanted by everyone here in this booth to have an official Ralph Kiner scorecard.
It's a treasure right there.
Yeah.
And he is a treasure.
He's the best.
Hall of Fame player. Tremendous broadcaster. Great person. Slider off the plate. It's 3-1 to Tatis. They just don't get any better than Ralph.
He's a class act. And one of the young kids brought in an old photograph of some of the old players he played with the Albany team in the minor leagues, and it was pretty interesting to see Ralph at, well, he couldn't have been more than 18, 19 years old. Good looking young man.
I maintain Ralph has signed more autographs than any human being alive. Breaking ball in for a strike. It's 3-2 to Tatis. And this kid Romo throws slider after slider.
And from
the right hand hitters.
Yeah, and from the side, and it makes it difficult on those right-handed hitters.
A 25-year-old right-hander. With the go-ahead run at second and 1 out. 3-2 to Tatis.
Fastball hit deep to left center field. Back goes Lewis, looking up, and it's out of here. Fernando Tatis does it again. A 2-run homer for Tatis, and the Mets take a 5-3 lead. Fourth home run of the season, the second of the series for Tatis, who has 3 extra base hits today. And Bruce Bochy was shaking his head and wondering why did he throw him a fastball.
Yeah. You get these slider pitchers, they have better control sometimes with their slider than they do with their fastball. Wanted that pitch to be inside the jam. Tatis right over down the middle. And we've seen the kind of power the last few games from Fernando.
So the Mets back out in front. Here's Delgado, and he takes a strike.
What's that like that? You see him run down the dugout? He was ready to party. Let the dancing begin.
The last week that Tatis is on. A chant of Tatis coming from the Met fans.
Well, it's a great story, isn't it? The return of Tatis, a guy who was so far down and out as far as baseball is concerned that he wasn't even in the game in 2004 or 2005. Began a comeback in 06. Mets kept him in the minor leagues all season last year. Came to spring training this year willing to play anywhere. Up and in, and Delgado for the second time today drops the bat. Last time it got called a check swing strike. This time it's a ball. But you've never seen a guy more appreciative of a second chance at a baseball career than Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
Delgado hits it well to center field. Back goes Rowan onto the warning track, right at the wall. He reels it in. Now Delgado hit it all the way to the Verizon Wireless sign in deepest left center, and Rowan tracked it down for the second out.
Oh, another fastball just right down the middle. Maybe caught it a little off the end for Delgado. Nice catch.
Kevin Burkhardt, you have some thoughts about Tatis?
I just think it's funny. I guess it goes to show what I know sometimes, guys. You know, I did a story a week ago when I talked to Fernando at length about how he's taking every at bat so seriously that he's been shortening his swing. You realize since then he's got 3 jacks. So I guess he's getting a little more confident, that's for sure.
You got to start small.
That's right.
Slider in for a strike to Nick Evans, 1-1.
Tatis is one of those guys that probably has not made a list of how many scouts and people in baseball that told him he was done, but I bet you he knows who the names are.
Well, I asked Jerry Manuel today. I said, if the worst comes to pass and you don't have Moises Alou and Ryan Church the rest of the year, can you survive? And he said, well, we'll have to keep having guys play the way they're playing. He said we'll need dominant pitching, but also in the context of that is if the guys who are filling the roles right now, the Tatises and the Chavezes and the Easleys and the Argenis Reyeses, can keep playing the way they're playing, you miss those big guys less.
Evans hits it hard to short off the backhand of Burris, and Evans is aboard. A shot, second hard hit ball today for Evans, and he'll get credit for a base hit. Aerial coverage brought to you by DirecTV. If you call yourself a sports fan, you've got to get DirecTV. Well, you see that great shot of Citi Field right next to Shea. You can see the rotunda at the lower right portion of your screen. Sergio Romo is done. They'll bring in the left-hander to face Schneider. Mets have taken a 5-3 lead on Tatis's home run in the 7th. Strike to Schneider. Today Muniz came on to get the final out after the Giants had tied the game in the 5th. Stayed on, pitched a hitless 6th, and Schoenweiss adds a 1-2-3 7th.
Juaner Sanchez up to pitch the 8th.
It's 24 of the last 25 batters retired by the Mets bullpen. And a look in on Evans. Our statistician Dave Freed has done the research.
Yes.
Raleigh, California, east of San Diego, north of Mexicali.
Oh, okay.
So it's in the desert. Up and away, and it's 1-1 to Schneider.
You get to some of those towns east of LA and east of San Diego, you might as well be in Oklahoma. I mean, they are just.
It's probably what, 115 there?
Oh, impossible. Lancaster. There is a minor league team there. They take batting practice in shorts. It's so hot.
1-2 to Schneider. Indio. That's that in that neighborhood.
When you're playing golf, the putts always break towards Indio. Gary, you got to know that.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a golfer. I wouldn't know that. You have to cut that ball left to right.
No, but okay. If you got the mountain Indio to your left and the putt looks like it breaks right, it won't break as much right because it's going to favor Indio.
I'm not sure if you're pulling my leg or not. You're speaking a language with which I'm just not familiar.
Golfers have their own kind of crazy, silly language. Just if you ever come out and play with me,
you'll laugh at me.
No, I won't laugh at you. I'm great. I'm great to play with. I love playing with guys that are just starting to play.
Schneider pops it up. Castillo going over near the tarp and watches it go out of play. I mean, you'll shoot a 68 and I'll shoot 168.
The key, it doesn't matter. The key, though, if you're a higher handicap golfer, there's a few things you can't do. You can't plumb bob.
What does that mean?
Plumb bob is where you're reading a putt and you stand behind the putt and you raise your putter, and by looking at it out of your major eye, you can see the break of the putt. If you're a high handicap golfer, you're not allowed to plumb bob.
Just get over the ball.
Just get over the ball and hit it and move along. That's the key.
Hit your 3 or 4 putts, tap it in. Do you get to pick up at any point?
Yes, you can. You can always pick up. I think picking up is key. If you're behind the tree, take the ball and put it back in the fairway. Learn how to hit regular shots before you try to hit a tiger shot around the tree. So those are the little rules.
Do you have to take a penalty for that?
No, you don't take a penalty with me. I'll have you down about 97 in 2 weeks.
I'm going to take you up on this one of these days.
We will. We will
It's a scary thought for me. I've played 9 holes in my life. When I was 15 years old, I shot a 67 for 9 holes.
Listen, everyone shoots a 67 at some point on a golf course. Just whether it's early or late.
2-2 to Schneider, and he fouls it off.
But you know why you'll love it? Because you love the outdoors. You'll love the ability to walk the course and that the aesthetics of playing.
The exercise and nature part of the experience.
Yeah, you're not much of a beer drinker, so the 19th hole is not a concern for you.
It's the good walk spoiled.
That's right. Mr. Twain, Mark Twain.
Way inside to Schneider, and it's 3-2. Damian Easley's come out on deck to pinch hit if Schneider can keep the inning going. Tashner brought in to try and get the lefty out. He's thrown 8 pitches to Schneider and still working on it. And so Evans will run with 3-2 and 2 down. And Schneider stopped the swing in time. Ball 4. Cuzzy with the call down at third, so that prolongs the inning and gets Damian Easley to the plate. And these are the at-bats that the Mets have been so much better at in recent days. Driving in runs with 2 outs, prolonging innings, tacking on runs late in games.
And this is, if you're the pitching coaches for both of these clubs, you check and make sure that you're getting paid today.
7 walks issued by Giant pitching. 6 by the Mets. So now Damian Easley, who had a 10-game hitting streak stopped yesterday, getting a day off, which has been a rarity for him, playing every day since the injury to Castillo. And he pulls one over the bag. Great diving stop by Castillo. Spikes the throw, and it goes by Bowker. In to score comes Evans. Schneider goes to third. And it's 6-3 New York. Well, Castillo took a double away from Easley, but Bowker, not an experienced first baseman, and he could not pull that throw out of the dirt.
Well, it was a strange throw. He never even had to field it in the dirt. That ball was there on the fly. All he had to do is reach out another foot or so, and he has that play. Schneider to second base. Proceeded on to third with the bad throw.
Well, they're calling it an error on the throw, but looking at that replay, you're right. That's a ball that Bowker should have caught out of the air.
That's just a whiff right there.
Again, he's an outfielder who did not play first base at all until he was called up to the major leagues in April. Jose Reyes takes a strike. And that's what you got to live with a young player learning a new position.
Although last time I checked, you do have to catch the ball in the outfield too, so that's a play he should be able to make.
You're tough. Reyes takes one in the dirt, stopped by Alfonso to save a run.
Man, that is harsh. I shouldn't be that harsh on the young guy, but you know, I mean, that's, boy, you watch your guy make a play like that, get you out of the inning, have a chance to make a great comeback.
So now the Mets with a 3-run lead and a chance for more. But go back to the walk to Schneider.
Yeah.
You know, 2-out walk to the number 8 hitter, lefty brought in to face the lefty. That prolongs the inning, and gives easily a chance to swing the bat, and he's been hitting the ball well, and he hit the ball solidly. And
I also think he walked Schneider on a 3-2 slider. I mean, it's not like Brian's hitting 300. I mean, there's certain times that you have to just go after a hitter. That was one of them.
And Reyes drives a base hit to center field. That'll bring home Schneider. And it's 7-3 Mets. Jose Reyes with his first hit of the afternoon drives in his 40th run of the year. And the Mets are piling it on. It's now 7-3.
Well, nice short stroke from Jose. And what you like about it, when that ball's up in the strike zone, he got that top hand on top of the ball. Great line drive.
So the Mets taking full advantage of the Giants' mistakes. They've scored 4 runs here in the 7th inning to take a 7-3 lead. Argenis Reyes, the 9th man up in the inning, and he takes high for ball 1. Now Osiris Matos is back up in the Giants bullpen. You realize Jose Castillo has now been charged with 2 errors today, and he should have none.
That's right.
He had the bad hop, which should have been ruled a base hit, and was scored an error, and then that throw, which should have been an error on the first baseman.
Do the official scores, do they watch a home replay? Or
in both cases, Howie Carpenter, who's the scorer today, did not make a call until he had seen a replay.
Okay. Well, I think that if the ball stays in the air true to first base, you got to be able to make that catch. I'm sure no one feels worse than Mr. Bowker at first.
Evergetti out to the mound to try and settle down Jack Tashner, who's now fallen behind Argenis Reyes 2-0. Saturday on an all-new Jets Nation, Jets GM Mike Tannenbaum drops by the studio. Hear what he has to say about all the off-season activities, plus his take on how the team looks as they prepare for training camp. Jets Nation, all-new episodes Saturday at 11:30 p.m. only on SNY.
John Lennon's Strange Days. Do they always play that when the manager or the pitching coach comes out? Nobody told me there'd be days like these.
That's a great call, but I haven't been paying attention enough to know.
I'm trying to find out the nuances and when they play the music.
Need to come to a game and sit in the stands.
There you go.
When we aren't talking. We might be able to hear more. Reyes fouls it back 2-1. Argenis Reyes 1 for 4 today. Had a base hit back in the 3rd and scored the Mets' first run. David Wright led off this 7th inning with a double down the left field line, and the Mets have cashed in 4 runs. 2 on a home run by Tatis. An error and Reyes single have scored the others. Argenis Reyes grounds it down to Castillo. Is not going to throw it to anybody this time. Takes it himself to end the inning. The Mets grab the lead with a 4-1 7th. Fernando Tatis breaking up the tie with his 4th home run of the year. Tatis just keeps on paying dividends, and it's 7-3 New York.